Namaste, I'm Dana Saray. Welcome to Yoga and the Subtle Body. I'm here with Anandra George. We're here at Hanuman Festival having such a wonderful experience in this beauty of Hanuman. And we're here talking about the subtle body. Anandra is a teacher of mantra and sacred sound and is going to share with us the power of sound vibration and how sound vibration is so amazing at really getting deeper into the subtle body. So let's go in through that doorway of what is the science behind vibration?
Well, there's a lot that could be said about that, of course. From the zoomed out perspective, we understand both through the yogic science as well as through the science of the physics that everything is vibration. So that's one place where ancient and modern agree. But I think often that's kind of obtuse or esoteric for a lot of people to really click and get. So I think a really accessible way to explain that is that we have the five senses, right? Let's just take the sense of hearing, for instance. We have a certain range of frequency that is audible to us. Our instrument can detect a certain range of frequency, and we know that dogs, for instance, can hear higher frequency ranges than we humans can hear. And there are also ranges on the lower end that we humans can't hear, but like seismic earthquake detectors can. So when we think about that from a practical point of view, as a yogi, as a person on the path of awakening our human potential, there is an ability that we have to tune and train a larger sense of our capacity to perceive. And so we can actually expand that frequency range and begin to become really aware of the normally unheard sounds. And two examples of that are the normally unheard sound of your inner voice talking to you and guiding you.
And not maybe the mind chatter, but you're speaking of a subtler voice.
That voice that's like the pulse, like the magnetic pulse of your life force moving you down the path of your destiny.
There's something about the power of sound vibration to clear some of this mind chatter, right? So that we can actually resonate with that deeper voice.
Yeah, and I think that's really the overarching goal of yoga, all of the yogas, is to make the shift from being reactive, where we're just taking in sensory information, and then there's a lot of clutter, whether it's echoes of previous clutter, like your past lives or your family dynamics or something your teacher told you sometime that you were tone deaf or whatever, or whether it's actually like today's clutter, like the advertisements and the billboards and the chaos of the Facebook feed or whatever. So going from that kind of constant reactive sound to actually tuning into something more deep, more eternal. And I think that there's a way through the practices of, especially of mantra and of using sound as a meditation, like really going through the sound current to go back inside, where we can go under, it's like just slip underneath the surface of all that kind of chaos and reactivity.
Absolutely.
And stay tuned, like literally tuned in.
Tuned in.
Yeah.
I love what you said about the pulse of life force, tuning into that pulse, like that essence, that vibratory essence of our true nature.
Yeah.
And that we can clear out this clutter, both of the mind, but then also the clutter that gets lodged into our subtle body as well, our chakras, our tissues, and that the sound vibration is so powerful. Can you speak to how sound kind of really can get in there and clear it out?
Yeah, that's one of the really most interesting things that I observe as a teacher of mostly the subtle body practices of sound and mantra. Often we have kind of layers of awareness, and we have even layers of tissue. Like you have the first layer where you're like, hey, this feels good, and I'm loving life, or maybe I'm loving this chant, or I'm loving this yoga pose and stretching me. And then we have another layer under that where it's kind of like, I'm feeling, I'm aware of some tension, and then we can do something about it. Or in the subtle level, I'm aware of this unhelpful thought, and we can do something about it. And then we have, I don't even know it's there. It's not bothering me because I don't even know it's there.
Right.
And when you start to really do a deep sound-based practice, you're working on the subtle bodies, because mantra and sound starts where the meat suit leaves off. You know, you've got the 5 koshas, the one that's built of food, the annamaya kosha, the one that's built of the life force, the breath, the pranamaya kosha, and then you have manamaya kosha, the jnanamaya kosha, and anandamaya kosha, the mind, the identity, and the bliss. And when you start to do a sound-based practice, it's different for everybody, but like we start to become aware of those different layers of what's going on.
Right.
And honestly, that for most people is uncomfortable. You know,
Stuff comes up, you start to be aware of those things that you weren't aware of before.
Exactly. You become aware, and often painfully aware.
Yeah.
Like in a physical practice, you become painfully aware of the fact that your body's twerked to the left.
Yeah.
And then, you work really hard to try to get it a greater sense of flow. And the same thing is there in a mantra practice, that you become painfully aware of your deeply embedded belief systems about not being respected or
good enough.
Or valued, or so many. Everybody has their own
flavor of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But this beauty of the sound is that, like, I kind of see it or feel it, like it's when you really start tapping into the pulse and the love that is the sound, it's just like it sort of embraces and softens and sort of titillates the deep knots open, and you realize that that there's so much more to you than you thought you were, like that you actually have an anandamaya kosha, you actually have this bliss body.
Tell us about the bliss body.
Do I have to speak?
Right?
I think, for me, that's the growth edge for me right now, is really through the music, through the sound, through these sacred formulas of the mantras. I'm able to actually feel that like casing of bliss that keeps me. There's just like that little bit of like, I am separate from the infinite, and I feel that when I'm chanting. And it's very soft, it's very nebulous, but there's just enough self-awareness to be happy about it. There's just enough, reflection to enjoy the dance. And I think we all kind of can tap into that, especially, since we're talking about sound, through a chanting practice where we really let go into letting our voice move from our heart and feel that, just that natural. It's natural.
Yeah.
It is our natural state.
Yes.
To be joyful.
Yeah.
And babies are real tuned in to the bliss body. Happy babies, right? And most of us, in contrast to that, like modern life, we're so overstimulated, reactive, numbed out,
knots, like you talked
totally,
about, knotted
like,
up,
unconscious.
in our,
It's the state, the subtle body state of the ordinary modern person is so compacted.
Yes.
That it's a revelation even to just tap for a fraction of a second into that bliss body. But as we continue with a sound-based practice, it's sort of like
it starts to open.
Everything starts, and which is again not necessarily like always a pleasant process, because you become aware of stuff that you didn't know was there, but eventually it really does.
So at first it can feel more uncomfortable and intense as these kind of blockages start to be revealed. Yeah. But then as you stay with it, is what I'm hearing. You stay with it. You stay with your practice. You're consistent. You show up. Yeah. It starts to open and open and open, and pretty soon you can feel those ripples of bliss more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's it's a fine point. Like it's not the doing of the practice like as another thing you have to tick off your to-do list. It's the fact that the practice is a gateway for you to experience that spaciousness, that pause. And in the pause, what naturally arises is your true self, because you're not distracted or numbed by other things. So we try to cultivate, just even micro moments at the beginning, and then we begin to reorient ourselves to that. Oh wait, I think I'm going to claim that as my identity.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And then you sort of you have to convince yourself.
Right. At first it takes right. Like fake it till you make it a little bit.
Yeah, almost. It's like you have to remind yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I am that.
I am that. Right.
And it's really a very it's very personal, and it's a very nitty-gritty process. Like to constantly remind yourself, yeah, I am that.
So I loved what you just said about the spaciousness and the pause. And I know that's such a huge part of a mantra practice, is the sound vibration and then the silence that comes in there. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's so many analogies to use. Like what makes music beautiful is how you play the notes on the silence. If there's no silence in the music, then it's just adding to the chaos. And the same like with visual art. If there's no space in the piece, there's nowhere to rest. And when we orient our practices to resting in the spaciousness, rather than again like doing it to do it well, or doing it just to get it done because somebody said it was a good thing to do.
It's like reiterating that patterning that we all probably have way too much of.
Yeah, most of us do.
Most of us in our modern culture overdo.
Yeah. And until you actually can make that shift and actually know that the point is not doing the practice, the point is resting in the spaciousness, you don't actually get out of the stress mechanism in your nervous system. So I have met so many yoga teachers, yoga practitioners, musicians, people who you would think are like in the vibe, but actually there's so much the way that they're approaching is through stress. And the antidote to that is to approach it through space. And then in the spaciousness, you can actually switch the current of your nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, digest, repair, restore, rejuvenate. And
which we're really designed to live in that space.
most of the time.
Most of the time. And then there's a small amount of time that we're designed to respond to the
Thankfully, we have that. I mean, that's why we are alive as a species.
Right.
We have this ability to quick
get into gear.
Yeah, to fight, or fly, run, or freeze.
Yeah.
But
We're not supposed to live there, but most of us live there at this point.
Yeah,
So unwinding that is so important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's been so interesting for me, and really exploring that in myself and observing others, is that when we're in the stress state, we're actually unable to hear. We're unable to learn deeply. The only thing that we can learn about is what threats are coming. So we actually perceive everything through the lens of threat.
So what might not be a threat becomes a threat.
Yeah.
Because we're perceiving that way.
Yeah. Like an angry email from your boss
Yeah.
is actually not going to kill you.
Right? Or it might even not be as
might-
angry as you're perceiving it to be.
Bingo.
Yeah.
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 And so only when we actually become aware of our subtle bodies, and for most of us that begins with the mind and the sound of our thoughts, the patterns, the currents of our thoughts, we don't even know that we're chronically in the stress reaction mode.
Right.
And we don't even know what it feels like yet. I'm saying yet because
Because we're getting there.
we're getting there. Yeah. We don't even know what it feels like yet to actually be at peace and to actually live in a restorative, contributing, generous and curious state of being. And in the yoga community, we're getting there, but I think that there are some tweaks that often need to happen in the way that we approach it.
The practice itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're practicing to get attention or to, meet some external goal, then it's I won't say that it's unfortunate or, mourn about that, but it's just not.
It's not the full potential.
There you go.
And like you said at the beginning, yoga is about realizing our human potential, and that we have this huge range. Like I loved what you were speaking to of the sound, that we can actually be able to expand our capacity to hear, to see, to feel.
I mean, have you ever heard someone else's thoughts? Yeah. Or like if you're around a spiritual person, like have you actually heard their mantra? Like we have that. We have those capabilities, and so, we're really underutilizing our potential, I think.
Yeah, and so when we can utilize more of our potential, what does that do for us? Like, why are we interested in this as yogis, as people on the path? What is it? How is it going to benefit our lives?
Well, I think that there's a sense of fullness that we experience in nature and in moments of connection that we just it's right.
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling, and it's an embodied experience of perfection, of wholeness. You might say divinity. And we're the potential for this earth to be a heaven is right there. We decide if we're going to experience that or not, especially when we become aware of our unconscious obstacles to that when we start working with the subtle body.
Yeah.
And so from a personal point of view, I mean, we can live in a different world than the one that we see on the news. And on a planetary level, on a community, interrelations, a community, nation, globe, like we can contribute to resonating that level of harmony that, you know, informs other people that it's a possibility, that they don't have to numb themselves with alcohol, shopping, sex, relationships, you know, they antidepressants. They don't have to check out. That there's this glorious pathway towards really meeting our fulfillment.
And I really think it's important what you were saying earlier. So those of us who do numb out,
everybody does sometimes,
with these different ways, so many ways, it's like we're not wanting to feel what's underneath it all. And so what you were saying before about the discomfort that can come at first, just really acknowledging that process of discomfort, you know, it's there. And, you know, when we start to feel what's underneath of all these checked out, you know, behaviors, it can be really uncomfortable. But eventually, you know, there's an opening that we come to such a greater level of bliss, of our potential. And so in our final few moments, I'm wondering if you can offer a practice. I love when you offer practices, you know, maybe a little something that can just help us, because I feel like, you know, working with the mind is something that mantra is so powerful at, and working and how we can help ourselves through this discomfort so that when it comes up, we can kind of have that ally of a mantra.
Because it's there, definitely. It's always going to be there, and there's two things to remember about that. One, it's temporary, and two, it's cause for celebration. Because it means that something's happening.
Something's moving. Absolutely.
That things are moving. So in terms of like a really simple practice that we can do anytime, anywhere, anyone, regardless of their background or even religious or cultural affiliation, I think I'd like to share a Nad yoga practice.
Beautiful.
Which is, you wouldn't really say it's a mantra necessarily, but it's a way of working with the sound around you and entering into a like participatory listening with the sound around you.
So before you go into that, can you just share with our audience what Nad yoga is? Because I'm not sure everybody knows.
Nada is the Sanskrit word for vibration. So it's the yoga of vibration, and also commonly known as the yoga of sound.
Beautiful.
Music,
thank you.
Sound. So what I would recommend for a, like just a simple tuning in is that whenever you are aware that you're in some reactive pattern, or you're aware that you're in the stress, fight, flight, freeze, it can be a really simple practice. Nobody even needs to know that you're doing it. Just to start listening to the sounds around you. And I've done this on the ocean, at the beach on Kauai. I've also done this, you know, in a traffic jam in Delhi where I was almost dying from lack of oxygen and pollution. And it works on all ends of the spectrum to start listening into the sounds around you and listen for the tone. Listen for the pitch that comes out at you, and simply begin to make a very soft sound, and it would be so soft that not even you sitting next to me could hear it. Yeah, it's like you did that but that
Not
was
that
way
loud.
too
Yeah.
loud. Right? So
Yeah.
you would just and this is a terribly boring thing to watch on the video. So we won't prolong it, but that very very soft humming sound, and the guideline that I always give in the classes that I teach to introduce this yoga of sound is that it should be 60% listening and just 40% sound production.
Oh,
it could be
beautiful.
even less.
Okay.
So that the emphasis is on the listening and the kind of harmonizing into the environment, and less on the sound. It's less on the doing
Okay.
and more on the feeling and listening.
Yeah.
And that can be a very powerful way of bringing your energy immediately in, so that you can tune yourself into an alignment with what's authentic and true for you, and create a kind of conducive environment to actually hear your inner voice and that pulse of your intuition in that moment. So whether it's a big decision you've got in front of you, or whether it's like, should I go for coffee or should I call my friend? You know, like just...
You tune in, and then the answer reveals itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Aho. Namaste. Yeah. Oh, Anandra, thank you so much. I think
Yeah.
that's a really powerful and simple practice that we can all take with us, you know, to listen more, receive more, become more attuned
Yes.
here, so that we can also attune here, and the sound current that brings us right in
Yeah.
to that pulse.
Yeah.
So, wow, thank you
Yeah.
so much
It's a pleasure.
for your wisdom and being a part of this. We look forward to more and more and more from you. Yes.
Thank you so much, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.